Stop scrolling because the Jefferson nickel in your pocket could be worth far more than 5 cents. Today we are uncovering the hidden value, powerful history, and rare varieties of one of the longest running coin series in United States history. This is not just pocket change, this is American history struck in metal, and some Jefferson nickels have sold for thousands of dollars. The Jefferson nickel was first introduced in 1938, replacing the Buffalo nickel and honoring Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States, and the author of the Declaration of Independence. From the very beginning, this coin carried meaning, but it also carried secrets. During World War II, the mint was forced to change the metal composition to save nickel for the war effort, and those wartime nickels with large mint marks above Monticello are now some of the most sought-after 5-cent coins ever made. But the real excitement comes from the rare dates, errors, and varieties that slipped into circulation unnoticed. Coins like the 1939 doubled Monticello, the 1940 to 1945 Silver War nickels, the elusive 1950D with its extremely low mintage, and modern errors that collectors still hunt for today. These nickels were spent for decades before anyone realized how valuable they truly were. In this video, we dive deep into the Jefferson nickel story, from its artistic design and historical background to the exact features that make certain nickels worth serious money. If you have old rolls, inherited collections, or even loose change, you need to know what to look for before it is gone forever. Stay until the end, because one Jefferson nickel variety completely changed the market and proved that even the smallest denomination can carry enormous value. This is not just a nickel, this is hidden wealth, history, and opportunity sitting right in your hand.
Imagine holding in your hand a small piece of American history, a coin that carries the story of war, peace, recovery, and a nation rebuilding itself after global conflict. This is not just any coin. This is the 1946 Jefferson nickel, a piece of metal that marks the end of an era and the beginning of a new chapter in the story of the United States Mint and the American people. The year was 1946, and the world was just stepping out of the shadows of World War II. The air was filled with the hope of peace. But the scars of the war were still fresh in the memories of millions for the United States Mint. This year meant something very important. It marked the return to the traditional composition of the Jefferson nickel after years of wartime. Experimentation from 1942 to 1945, the mint had used a special alloy of silver, manganese, and copper to save nickel metal for the war effort. These war nickels carried a distinct look and even a large mint mark above Monticello to signify their unique composition. But in 1946, things changed. America was moving from war to peace, and with it, the Jefferson nickel was reborn in its original form. The 1946 Jefferson nickel was struck in 3 locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. But what makes this year remarkable is the symbolic return to the original 75% copper and 25% nickel composition. The same blend that had been used since 1938 when the Jefferson nickel series was first introduced. This shift back to the pre-war alloy was more than a technical adjustment. It was a message of stability, of recovery, and of the American spirit of normalcy. After the long years of conflict designed by Felix Schlag, the Jefferson nickel had already become one of the most recognizable coins in American pockets. The obverse features a proud left-facing portrait of Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States and one of the nation's founding fathers. Schlag's design was chosen in 1938 through a national competition held by the Mint, and his work captured Jefferson's thoughtful and intellectual demeanor. On the reverse side stands Monticello Jefferson's Grand Virginia estate, a neoclassical masterpiece that mirrors the architecture of American ideals, democracy, knowledge, and balance. When production resumed in 1946, the Mint faced the challenge of refining its machinery. After years of using different alloys, the pre-war copper-nickel blend was harder and more durable than the wartime silver alloy. So new adjustments had to be made to ensure that every strike captured the fine details of Schlag's design. Many 1946 nickels from the early production runs show signs of weak strikes, particularly on Jefferson's hair details and the steps of Monticello. This was due to worn dies and technical readjustments. But as the year progressed, quality improved and later strikes became sharper and more detailed. In terms of mintages, The 1946 nickel saw massive production as the economy surged with post-war optimism. The Philadelphia Mint alone produced over 161 million coins. The Denver Mint added about 45 million, and the San Francisco Mint contributed roughly 13 million. This total of over 219 million nickels ensured that the 1946 issue circulated widely across the country. Yet among these millions of coins, collectors today still search for those special pieces with full steps on Monticello, a mark of a well-struck example that reveals all 6 steps at the base of Jefferson's. Home full-step nickels from 1946 are rare, especially from the San Francisco Mint, and these coins command a premium in the numismatic market. Now let's step back and look at the historical context. The United States in 1946 was a country in transformation. Soldiers were returning home from battle, industries were shifting from weapons to consumer goods, and the American dream was being rewritten. Factories that once built tanks were now building cars and homes. The coinage of 1946 reflected this new era. Every Jefferson nickel struck that year carried with it the weight of victory and the promise of peace. These coins moved through the hands of citizens buying their first post-war cup of coffee, paying bus fares in booming cities, and being saved by collectors who saw in them a symbol of a new beginning. The mint itself was undergoing modernization in 1946. It was still using traditional press machines, but was preparing for the technological improvements that would define the 1950s. The need for efficiency, precision, and mass production had grown dramatically during the war, and now those innovations were being redirected to serve a thriving consumer economy. The Jefferson nickel stood at the crossroads of this evolution, a small, durable coin made not for war, but for prosperity. One of the most intriguing aspects of the 1946 nickel is how it bridged 2 ages. The war nickels of 1942 through 1945 with their silver content are a distinct subset in the series, and the 1946 issue marked a return to normalcy. Collectors often see the 1946 coin as the first of the post-war nickels, a transitional symbol representing both the past and the future in the numismatic community. It is appreciated not only for its metallic composition, but also for its historical meaning. In terms of design modifications, nothing major changed in 1946. Schlag's design remained consistent, but minor die variations have been recorded by experts in the field. These include differences in the size of the letters in the motto and variations in the strike of Monticello's dome. Advanced collectors often spend years searching for these die varieties, and grading services like PCGS and NGC recognize full-step examples as elite pieces worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on mint and condition. Beyond its numismatic value, the 1946 Jefferson nickel is also a cultural artifact. It represents the ideals of Jefferson himself, a man who believed in education, science, architecture, and democracy. His image on the coin serves as a daily reminder of those values during a time when America was redefining its place in the world. Coins are not just money. They are miniature history books carrying symbols, ideals, and the heartbeat of a nation. As the years passed, millions of 1946 nickels continued to circulate through the 1950s and 1960s, but as the designs aged and the dies wore down, the mint began to consider design updates. By the 1960s and 1970s, Jefferson's portrait would be refined, but the 1946 issue remains pure to Schlag's original artistic vision. Today, collectors seek high-grade examples preserved in mint-state condition coins that never entered circulation and still gleam with the original luster of post-war America. The 1946 Jefferson nickel tells us much about resilience and recovery. It reminds us that even after years of global turmoil, nations can rebuild and find balance again, and that sometimes the smallest objects like a 5-cent piece can tell the greatest stories, from the war effort's silver alloys to the post-war copper-nickel restoration, from the quiet craftsmanship of Felix Schlag to the massive presses of the United States Mint. The 1946 Jefferson nickel embodies the story of America's comeback. Have you ever held a coin so ordinary in appearance yet hiding a legacy of post-war American ambition, economic transition, and numismatic intrigue? The 1952 Jefferson nickel is not just another 5-cent piece. It's a silent witness to a nation reshaping itself after World War II, a coin that bridges the story between wartime scarcity and post-war prosperity. and behind its simple Monticello design lies a tale of artistry politics, minting struggles, and collectors' dreams that few have. Ever Heard Today, we're diving deep into the world of the 1952 Jefferson nickel, a story filled with mint marks, metal shortages, dye varieties, and the quest for perfection that defined an era. So grab your magnifying glass, settle in, and prepare for a journey through time where every detail, every mint flaw, and every preserved nickel tells the story of America in transition. Welcome to a numismatic adventure that transforms the common into the extraordinary. And by the end of this video, you'll never look at your spare change the same way again. In the year 1952, America stood tall as a nation, entering a decade of innovation, prosperity, and cultural change. Yet beneath the surface of that optimism, the country was facing the aftereffects of the Second World War and the rise of the Cold War tensions that influenced everything from industry to currency. The Jefferson nickel struck in that very year was a small metallic reflection of that transitional era. It was more than just a coin. It was a statement of continuity representing American ideals through design, economic policy, and national identity. The Jefferson nickel, introduced in 1938 to replace the Buffalo nickel, carried the image of Thomas Jefferson, one of the founding fathers and the principal author of the Declaration of Independence. This coin's creation was part of a larger artistic wave to modernize United States coinage with cleaner lines and patriotic symbolism. The artist Felix Schlegel, a German-born sculptor, had designed the portrait of Jefferson on the obverse and his famous home Monticello on the reverse, both of which became icons of mid-20th century American coin design by 1952. The Jefferson nickel had already established itself as a staple of American commerce. The nickel was not only a tool of everyday exchange, but also a subtle reflection of economic stability and industrial strength. During this time, the United States Mint operated out of three major facilities: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, each contributing its own production of the Jefferson nickel for the year 1952. The Philadelphia Mint struck around 64 million coins, the Denver Mint produced approximately 30 million, and the San Francisco Mint added roughly 20 million to circulation. Each of these coins, though identical in design, had minute differences and mint marks that now fascinate collectors. The Philadelphia Mint had no mint mark, while Denver's coins carried the D and San Francisco's the S. These small letters beneath the right side of Monticello on the reverse were symbols of identity that separated common nickels from regional rarities. The design itself remained faithful to Felix Schlegel's original concept, though subtle. Modifications had occurred over the years to improve dye life and clarity. Jefferson's bust was modeled in a neoclassical style, emphasizing his intellectual dignity. His gaze turned to the left with calm composure, while the word liberty and the date 1952 stretched elegantly across the right field above his profile on the reverse. Monticello was depicted with symmetry and precision, its steps, doors, and dome reflecting the ideals of structure and order that Jefferson himself cherished. However, not all 1952 nickels captured this detail perfectly due to dye wear and mechanical limitations. Some coins appeared weakly struck, especially around the steps of Monticello, leading to what collectors now refer to as the full step designation AI, feature highly prized in grading today. To understand the importance of the 1952 Jefferson nickel, we must look at the broader economic context. The United States in 1952 was in the midst of the Korean War, which began in 1950. This conflict affected the allocation of metals as the government prioritized strategic materials for defense purposes, while nickel was not rationed as severely as during World War II. The mint still faced challenges balancing cost and supply. This scarcity contributed to a focus on production efficiency and dye maintenance. The mint had to ensure each planchet was properly annealed and struck with consistent pressure to achieve a satisfactory result. The durability of the nickel alloy, 75% copper and 25% nickel, was ideal for circulation, but hard on dyes, leading to frequent replacements and minor variations in strike quality. These subtleties are what make the 1952 Jefferson nickel so intriguing to collectors today. The mints each had their own production challenges. Philadelphia, as the primary mint, handled the bulk of the coinage and maintained the highest output, but the Denver and San Francisco mints produced coins with their own distinct characteristics. Denver coins are known for relatively strong strikes, though, with occasional die erosion that softened the finer details. The San Francisco Mint in 1952 was nearing the end of its coinage era for circulation coins soon to cease production. After 1955. Thus, the 1952 IS Jefferson nickel carries historical importance as part of that closing chapter. The S-Mint coins often exhibit weaker strikes, but carry charm due to their limited mintage and regional distinctiveness. Collectors have long studied the varieties. And errors of this coin year, one of the most fascinating aspects lies in die breaks, repunched mint marks, and over-polished dies, which produced anomalies such as missing steps or doubled details. These are the accidental artworks of the minting process, each revealing something unique about the life of a die and the pressures of production in a high-demand post-war economy. Among the more noted varieties for 1952 are the repunched mint marks on both Denver and San Francisco issues. The repunched mint mark occurs when the letter punch was applied twice to the die slightly off alignment, creating a shadow effect. These varieties are now cataloged and valued highly, especially in higher grades. In circulation, the 1952 Jefferson nickel saw widespread use as America's economy expanded. Families were buying new homes, cars, and appliances, and nickels passed through millions of hands. In daily commerce, vending machines, jukeboxes, and telephone booths all consumed nickels by the millions. The coin became part of the soundtrack of the 1950s, a small metallic symbol of convenience and progress. Yet while millions were spent and saved, few recognized the artistry and precision that went into creating each piece for numismatists. Every small detail mattered, from the luster of the metal to the strike sharpness and die alignment. As the decades passed and the Jefferson nickel design endured through countless changes in politics and culture, the 1952 issue began to stand out for its historical positioning, sitting firmly between the wartime nickels of 1942-1945 and the modernized issues of the late 1950s. It represents the steady normalization of America's coinage and economy. Collectors began seeking examples in high grade with full steps and brilliant luster. As the numismatic market evolved, grading services like PCGS and NGC began certifying these coins, assigning premiums to those in pristine mint state condition with perfect step details. A full step 1952S or 1952D Jefferson nickel can fetch significant value today due to their rarity and such preservation. The Jefferson nickel itself continued its journey through American pockets until design changes began to modernize the portrait in 2004 and 2005. Yet the 1952 issue remains frozen in time, a mid-century snapshot of American artistry and industrial resilience, when coins were still struck from solid metal rather than plated composites. Its simple beauty and historical depth attract not only collectors but historians who see in it the story of America rebuilding and redefining itself after the turmoil of global conflict. If you examine a 1952 nickel under magnification, you can see the craftsmanship that the mint engravers applied. Every contour of Jefferson's face, every architectural line of Monticello carved with precision. Despite the limitations of the mid-century equipment, it's a small yet profound testament to the American mint's dedication to quality even in an age of mass production. From metal sourcing to die engraving, each stage carried human skill and attention to detail. These were not just coins, they were miniature works of national art. In the world of coin collecting, the 1952 Jefferson nickel occupies a respected position, bridging eras, connecting collectors to a time when the mint's mechanical rhythm echoed the nation's progress and perseverance. Its value lies not merely in its monetary worth, but in the stories it carries, stories of mint workers, artisans, and citizens who used it daily to buy milk, newspapers, and gasoline. It's a coin that silently watched history unfold from the Korean War to the dawn of rock and roll. Have you ever held a coin in your hand and wondered what secrets it carries? The whispers of history, the silent journey through time from the hands of ordinary Americans to the vaults of collectors across the world. Today we dive deep into one of the most fascinating chapters of American coinage, the 1956 Jefferson nickel. A coin that might look simple to the untrained eye, but hides within it a story of artistry, ambition, and the golden era of post-war America. This is not just a nickel. This is a symbol of a nation's pride, a reflection of its economy, its culture, and its craftsmanship. Stay with me as we journey back to 1956, a year when America was booming, when innovation was reshaping every aspect of life, and when the United States Mint was producing one of the most remarkable coins of the Jefferson series. Welcome to the world of the 1956 Jefferson nickel. The 1956 Jefferson nickel stands as a remarkable testament to the United States' post-war prosperity and stability. Minted during a period of optimism, industrial expansion, and cultural transformation, the coin represents more than mere currency. It is a symbol of continuity in design and tradition stretching back to 1938, when the Jefferson nickel was first introduced. Replacing the long-running Buffalo nickel designed by Felix Schlag, the Jefferson nickel became an instant classic, embodying the spirit of the third president of the United States, Thomas Jefferson, and showcasing his home Monticello on the reverse. By 1956, this design had already cemented itself as one of America's most recognizable coins, and yet the story behind this specific year is one of quiet significance and technical achievement. In 1956, America was thriving. The Eisenhower administration was leading a country filled with confidence. The interstate highway system was just beginning to take shape. Television was transforming the way people saw the world, and the U.S. Mint continued its work to meet the demands of a growing population. Coinage production was steady but refined, and the 1956 Jefferson nickel was no exception. It was struck only at the Philadelphia and Denver mints, and both mints maintained exceptional quality control for the era, though proof coins were minted in Philadelphia to satisfy the growing interest of collectors. At the Philadelphia Mint, more than 35 million nickels were struck without a mint mark. Since Philadelphia coins traditionally carried none, the Denver Mint produced roughly 67 million. Coins marked by a small D on the reverse to the right of Monticello. But despite the large mintage, not all 1956 nickels are created. Equal slight variations in strike quality, luster, and die wear have created a range of conditions that influence their desirability among collectors, while circulated examples remain common. Finding well-struck coins with sharp details, especially on Jefferson's hair and Monticello's steps, can be a challenge, and it is these high-quality strikes that truly excite numismatists. Proof coins of 1956 deserve special attention. These proofs were struck at the Philadelphia Mint with meticulous care, using polished dies and specially prepared planchets. Approximately 69,000 proof sets were produced that year, making them highly collectible today. Each proof coin was hand-inspected and packed into a 5-coin set featuring the Lincoln cent, Jefferson nickel, Roosevelt dime, Washington quarter, and Franklin half-dollar. The 1956 proof Jefferson nickel is known for its deep mirror surfaces and remarkable detail, with cameo contrasts highly prized by collectors in today's market. The design of the Jefferson nickel had remained unchanged since 1938, but by the mid-1950s, subtle improvements in die technology and minting techniques had begun to enhance the overall appearance of the coin. Felix Schlag's original vision of Jefferson facing left had endured for nearly 2 decades. His depiction of Monticello on the reverse continued to stand. As a powerful architectural emblem of early American ideals, the simplicity of the design belied the complexity of its creation and the technical mastery required to strike a coin with both aesthetic beauty and functional durability. The year 1956 was also significant in terms of economic history. The nickel's purchasing power was greater than it is today. With 5 cents, you could buy a loaf of bread or a cold soda. Yet inflation and industrial progress were already reshaping the value of money. The nickel's composition of 75% copper and 25% nickel remained unchanged since its inception in 1866, symbolizing durability and continuity in a rapidly modernizing world. Each coin struck that year circulated through the hands of Americans who were part of a changing society, from factory workers to school children to soldiers returning home and building new lives. The 1956 Jefferson nickel thus became a witness to the optimism and vitality of mid-century America. When examining the details of the 1956 issue, collectors pay particular attention to the sharpness of Monticello's steps. On the reverse, fully struck steps, known as full steps, are an indicator of superior die condition and precise striking. Such examples are relatively scarce and command significant premiums in the collector market. Coins displaying 5 or 6 complete steps are particularly valued by specialists and grading companies like PCGS and NGC. Recognize these details with special designations. The search for the elusive full steps. 1956, Jefferson nickel continues to be a passion for advanced collectors. Worldwide errors and varieties from 1956 add even more intrigue, though not as numerous as in some other years. A few noteworthy varieties exist, including repunched mint marks and minor die clashes. These anomalies provide unique insight into the minting process of the time and add a sense of individuality to each surviving coin. Even a small misalignment or doubled feature can turn a common nickel into a fascinating study of minting history and a highly desirable collectible. By the late 1950s, the United States Mint was already planning for modernization. The Jefferson nickel would continue unchanged until 1966, when modifications to the design and relief were introduced, but the 1956 issue remains emblematic of the post-war golden age. It was a coin that circulated widely yet quietly, a part of everyday life that bridged the gap between the wartime economy and the technological boom of the 1960s. Collectors today often view it as a piece of Americana, a symbol of stability and craftsmanship from an era that defined a generation. The market value of 1956. Jefferson nickels varies depending on condition, rarity, and eye appeal. Circulated examples are generally worth only face value or slightly more, but uncirculated specimens, especially those with strong luster and full steps, can command impressive prices. Proof versions with deep cameo contrast are highly sought after and can reach into the hundreds of dollars for pristine certified examples. What makes the 1956 nickel truly special, however, is not its monetary worth but its story. It represents a chapter of American history preserved in metal, a time capsule of mid-century life minted in copper and nickel. To truly appreciate the 1956 Jefferson nickel, one must see beyond its 5-cent denomination and recognize it as a reflection of national identity, from the vision of Felix Schlag's design to the precision of the mint's machinery. Each coin is a work of art, crafted for the people and carried through decades of change. Perhaps a coin in your pocket today once passed through the hands of someone living in 1956, a factory worker, a child saving for their first toy, or a veteran rebuilding their life. Every mark and scratch tells a story. Every shine under the light reminds us that coins are not just currency, but carriers of history. So as we explore the 1956 Jefferson nickel, we see more than metal. We see America itself, resilient, proud, innovative, and timeless. A 5-cent piece that has become a bridge across generations, a relic of craftsmanship that continues to captivate collectors, historians, and dreamers alike from its creation in the bustling halls of the Philadelphia and Denver mints to its survival in collections around the world. The 1956 Jefferson nickel remains one of the quiet legends of United States coinage, a symbol of a nation that was and still is in constant pursuit of perfection. Have you ever held a coin that carried more than just its face value, a coin that whispered stories from the heart of American history? Today, we uncover the untold legacy of the 1958 Jefferson nickel, a coin that looks ordinary to the untrained eye but hides a powerful story of transition, craftsmanship, and American pride. From the minting halls of Philadelphia and Denver to the hands of millions of Americans, this coin marks the final calm before one of the biggest design and production changes in U.S. coinage history. Stay tuned as we dive deep into the craftsmanship, the minting secrets, the errors, and the market value shifts that make the 1958 Jefferson nickel one of the most underrated yet significant coins in U.S. history. The story of the 1958 Jefferson nickel begins in the post-war era of American optimism, when the United States was growing stronger, economically, culturally, and politically. The Jefferson nickel itself had been in circulation since 1938, replacing the Buffalo nickel and featuring one of the nation's founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson, on the obverse, and his Monticello estate on the reverse, designed by Felix Schlag. This coin became not only a piece of currency, but also a reflection of American heritage and artistry. By 1958, the Jefferson nickel had been in production for 2 decades, and the U.S. Mint had mastered the art of striking this coin with consistency, precision, and beauty. The Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint were the only 2 facilities to produce the 1958 Jefferson nickel. There were no nickels minted in San Francisco. During this year, this meant that collectors and historians would later focus their attention on mint marks and subtle details that distinguish one coin from another. The Philadelphia issue had no mint mark, While the Denver issue bore a small D located to the right of Monticello on the reverse side, both versions were struck from the standard composition of 75% copper and 25% nickel, giving it the familiar silvery tone that endures through decades. 1958 was a year of technological transition within the U.S. Mint. Advances in die production and metal preparation began improving strike quality, although the coins were still made using traditional mechanical presses. Compared to later years, these presses required manual oversight by skilled mint workers who ensured the dies remained aligned and the pressure consistent. The Jefferson Nichols design, especially the steps of Monticello, was notoriously difficult to strike fully. Many coins from 1958 failed to show complete step detail, which would later become one of the most sought-after features for collectors, known as full steps or FS designations. These refer to the sharply defined horizontal lines at the base of Monticello when all 5 or 6 steps are visible without breaks. The coin is considered a numismatic gem. In 1958, the Philadelphia Mint produced around 168 million nickels, while the Denver Mint struck nearly 120 million in total. The mintage surpassed 280 million coins, making it one of the higher production years for the Jefferson series. Despite that, the survival of high-quality coins, especially those with sharp details and minimal contact marks, is relatively low due to heavy circulation. Most of the nickels minted that year were used daily in commerce, passing through countless hands buying coffee, newspapers, gasoline, and groceries. It was the era before widespread credit cards when coins truly powered the American economy. As we explore the design, the obverse of the 1958 Jefferson nickel presents a left-facing portrait of Thomas Jefferson rendered with classic neoclassical styling. His expression is calm and thoughtful. A tribute to his intellect and leadership. Around the edge of the coin reads the words, "In God we trust," on the left, and "Liberty," followed by the date. 1958 on the right, connected by a small 5-pointed star. The reverse side features Monticello Jefferson's famous estate in Charlottesville, Virginia. The building is framed by the word Monticello at the top, 5 cents below, and United States of America along the lower rim. A pluribus unum is centered above the dome, signifying the unity of the states. By 1958, the dies used for minting were showing slight wear from years of repeated use. Minor changes and refinements occurred in the engraving to maintain clarity, yet the mint refrained from any major redesign until the 1960s. This makes 1958 an important transitional year. It represents the last pure stage of the early Jefferson nickel design before subtle modernizations began appearing. Collectors today view the 1958 Jefferson nickel as an affordable yet historically rich coin. Its value in circulated grades is modest, but in mint state conditions, particularly in MS-65 to MS-67, with full steps, the prices can reach hundreds of dollars, and in rare top condition even over $1,000, especially from the Denver Mint, which is known for slightly weaker strikes. The most prized 1958 D nickels are those showing sharp steps and clean luster preserved from uncirculated rolls or original mint sets. There are also known varieties and errors that fascinate coin enthusiasts. Some examples include double die obverse and reverse issues, where letters or features appear slightly doubled due to misalignment in die preparation. Other varieties include repunched mint marks or die cracks along Monticello's columns, though not as dramatic as wartime silver nickel errors. These 1958 mistakes still attract attention and can significantly boost a coin's desirability and market value. The year 1958 also connects deeply with the broader American story. Dwight D. Eisenhower was president. The nation stood at the dawn of the space age, and the spirit of progress was everywhere. The Jefferson nickel was part of the fabric of everyday life, yet it was also a silent witness to social change. The civil rights movement was gaining strength, and the U.S. economy was thriving. The coin symbolized stability in an era of rapid transformation. Its metallic shine reflected both tradition and hope. When studying the Jefferson nickel series, numismatists often divide its history into major phases. The early silver wartime nickels from 1942 to 1945, the pre-modern years from 1938 to 1964, and the modern-clad issues beginning in 1965, the 1958 nickel falls squarely in the pre-modern era, making it one of the last pure copper nickel issues before the mint overhauled many of its processes. It was a period when design integrity and die craftsmanship still depended heavily on human expertise. Every coin struck was a small piece of artistry born from the efforts of engravers, die sinkers, and press operators who dedicated their careers to perfection. Over time, collectors have come to appreciate the 1958 Jefferson nickel not just for its face value or metal content, but for what it represents: the end of an age of traditional minting and the perseverance of a classic American design. The Jefferson portrait continued to appear on the nickel for decades, but by the 1960s and 1970s, design fatigue and modernization efforts began altering its details. The 1958 issue remains one of the last untouched examples of Felix Schlag's original artistic vision, before refinements began reshaping the portrait and Monticello's relief. As the years passed, millions of these coins were lost to wear, melting, or circulation attrition, yet thousands survived in collectors' hands. Today they are preserved in albums and coin slabs carefully graded by professionals from the Professional Coin Grading Service and the Numismatic Guarantee Company. Their surfaces tell stories of history and preservation, shining reminders of mid-century America. To truly understand the 1958 Jefferson nickel is to see beyond metal and mint marks. It is to understand the evolution of American craftsmanship and the quiet dignity of a design that has endured for nearly a century. This coin remains a symbol of progress, continuity, and the enduring value of American coinage. Whether you are a casual collector, a numismatist, or simply someone fascinated by history, the 1958 Jefferson nickel holds a story worth telling, a story of legacy, precision, and the timeless beauty of American minting. Have you ever held a coin in your hand and felt the weight of history pressed into its surface, a simple nickel that silently tells stories of America's struggle, its innovation, and its promise? The 1968 Jefferson nickel is not just a small piece of metal. It is a witness to a transformative decade in American history, a time of social change, space exploration, and numismatic evolution. This coin carries the marks of craftsmanship, politics, and precision that reflect the heart of the nation. As it entered a new era, welcome to the story of the 1968 Jefferson nickel, a story of transition, innovation, and subtle rarity that continues to fascinate collectors and historians around the world. The 1968 Jefferson nickel emerged in a defining moment for American coinage following the great coinage changes of the 1960s, when silver was removed from most circulating coins, and the U.S. Mint faced a massive demand for coins amid population growth and industrial expansion. The Jefferson nickel had already been a staple in American pockets since 1938, when it replaced the Buffalo nickel. Its design, created by sculptor Felix Schlag, honored the third president of the United States, Thomas Jefferson, whose Monticello home stood as a symbol of intellect, democracy, and architecture. By 1968, the Jefferson nickel had seen its fair share of adjustments. But that year marked one of the most significant transitions in minting history, because it was the year when mint marks returned to United States coinage after a 3-year absence in 1965. The U.S. Mint had removed mint marks from coins in an effort to discourage the hoarding and collecting that was causing a national coin shortage. By 1968, the Mint decided to restore those marks, but in a new location for the Jefferson nickel, the mint mark moved from the right side of Monticello on the reverse to the obverse, just to the right of Jefferson's portrait. This single change gives the 1968 nickel a unique place in the timeline of American coin design. It was not just a technical adjustment, but a reflection of renewed public trust in the coinage system and the Mint's confidence that coins would again flow freely into circulation. The 1968 Jefferson nickels were struck at 3 facilities: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, with the San Francisco Mint producing proof coins. Only each mint had its own story of production challenges and innovations. The Philadelphia Mint struck the largest quantity without any mint mark, following the long tradition of its plain coins, while the Denver Mint, identified by its small d mark, produced circulation strikes that would fill the pockets of millions across the country. The San Francisco Mint, however, focused exclusively on proof coins intended for collectors. Each proof coin was a mirror-like masterpiece, carefully struck with polished dies and specially prepared planchets, creating a level of detail and brilliance unmatched by regular circulation issues. The metal composition of the 1968 Jefferson nickel remained the classic 5-cent alloy of 75% copper and 25% nickel. giving the coin its familiar silvery hue and durability. The coin weighed exactly 5 grams with a diameter of 21.21 millimeters and a plain edge. These technical details may sound simple, but they reflect decades of refinement. The perfect balance between economy, durability, and aesthetics, designed to keep American coinage both functional and beautiful. Examining the design, we see the artistry of Felix Schlag still alive after 3 decades, Jefferson's portrait facing left with calm dignity, his eyes gazing toward the word liberty and the national motto, "In God, we trust." The lines of his coat, the soft curls of his hair, and the subtle contour of his face were crafted with remarkable realism on the reverse. Monticello stands as the architectural centerpiece, the word Monticello beneath it, with United States of America and E pluribus unum, completing the patriotic vision by 1968. Minor design changes had smoothed out some details over years of hub design transfers, yet the coin still retained its timeless character. The year 1968 also marked technological advancement at the U.S. Mint as coinage production shifted toward more automated methods and improved die-making processes. The Philadelphia Mint installed new high-speed presses that could strike nickels at incredible rates, ensuring a consistent supply while maintaining quality. This efficiency was essential as America's demand for coinage soared with its rapidly expanding economy and consumer culture. For collectors, the 1968 Jefferson nickel presents a variety of intriguing details. The circulation strikes from Denver are generally common, but can show notable variations in strike sharpness due to heavy die use. High-grade examples with full steps on Monticello. The lines visible on the building steps are especially prized. By numismatists, the full steps designation is one of the highest indicators of strike quality and precision. A 1968 D nickel with fully defined steps can be rare and command premium values at auction. The Philadelphia coins, though plentiful, are less sharp in detail due to older dies used in production. Still, they represent an important part of the year's output. The San Francisco proof coins, however, are where the artistry shines most. The proof nickels of 1968 are renowned for their mirror, Field's frosted devices, and stunning eye appeal. They were struck twice under carefully controlled pressure, ensuring crisp detail. Each proof set sold directly to collectors became a treasured keepsake, reflecting the Mint's dedication to excellence beyond the minting process. The 1968 nickel holds deeper historical significance. The late 1960s were a time of profound change for the United States. The Vietnam War was ongoing. The civil rights movement continued to shape society, and the nation had just witnessed the assassinations of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Senator Robert F. Kennedy. Amidst this turmoil, the everyday nickel represented stability and continuity, an unchanged symbol in a rapidly changing world. When Americans reached into their pockets, they still found Jefferson's calm face a quiet reminder of the nation's enduring ideals. Numismatically, the 1968 nickel bridges the gap between early wartime silver alloy nickels of the 1940s and the modern-clad coinage era that would dominate the following decades. Collectors view it as a transitional issue, a symbol of the Mint's modernization and America's persistence through turbulence over the years. Grading services like PCGs and NGC have authenticated and encapsulated thousands of these coins, with high-grade examples achieving MS66 or MS67 designations, sometimes fetching surprising values among registry-set collectors. The proof coins, especially in cameo or deep cameo finish, continue to draw admiration for their beauty. As the years have passed, the 1968 Jefferson nickel remains a mainstay of American numismatics. It may not be the rarest or most valuable coin in the series, but its story is one of subtle transformation. It marks the rebirth of Mint, marks the rise of proof coin artistry, and the balance between tradition and progress. Every detail on this coin tells a chapter of America's numismatic journey, from design evolution to metallurgical consistency, from production efficiency to cultural endurance. Imagine the journey of one 1968 nickel from the Denver Mint, rolling off the press, bright and new, into bags shipped to banks and businesses, changing hands in grocery stores, gas stations, and diners, each transaction adding tiny marks that tell of everyday American life. Decades later, it may rest in a collector's album, protected and admired, not for its face value, but for the heritage it carries in its metal. And so when we speak of the 1968 Jefferson nickel, we are not Merely talking about a 5-cent piece, we are telling the story of American craftsmanship, of a nation's resilience, and of a design that has stood the test of time since 1938. Felix Schlag's vision of Jefferson and Monticello has endured with minor refinements but unwavering purpose. The 1968 issue embodies that continuity linking the past and the future through a simple yet powerful symbol.